Welcome to another episode of Mommy Mondays with Jen Pinto and Danesha Vargas. Today we will be talking about religion and spirituality. It's a topic that a lot of people don't talk about too much because it kind of separates people. And before we even begin, I just want you to have an open mind when listening. And that's what all of our, episodes, like just have an open mind in all the discussions we have. So first I want to ask, Danesha, were you raised like with a certain type of religion or spiritual belief growing up?
Yes, definitely did. So, my grandparents, well, I want to say my grandma from my dad's side, I was able to spend a lot of time from her. But not only that, the small town in the Dominican Republic that I come from is very Catholic. So, I definitely grew up in that environment. And I also want to say that I got baptized at a late age. So I was already like an early teenager,
Oh, wow.
around 13, 14, 15, around there. That's when I started going to like Bible study and all these things, which I think worked so well because I had what I thought was a clear understanding of what God was. And then I got submerged into this environment and it kind of twisted up reality for me because it was such a like vivid age where I was already going through so much. So I think that being baptized around that time, because I was already a conscious being, my thoughts were my own thoughts. I had a lot of questions and they were being very like shut down. So yes, that was my, like, I grew up around that and that type of environment.
Yeah, my family didn't really subscribe like religiously to a religion per se, but they were Catholic just because they were told to be Catholic.
I believe that's what happened in my family as well.
Yeah, like I don't think because my family never went to church. Like I was never like in a home where we went to church every Sundays or any of that. My mom would just say like, "Oh, we're Catholic," and I used to be like, okay," but nobody ever like broke it down to me. Nobody ever was like, "This is what we believe in, and this is God." My dad would always say that church and religion was a business, he would say. And that's what I always heard from him since I was a kid. I mean, since I was a child. And he would always say that God is within you. He would always say, you are God, you are the devil. It depends which one you nurture. You have both powers. And I'm like, So I used to go to church actually every Sunday. This is the crazy part, because my best friend that used to live next door to me, she used to go to Catholic school and they were Catholic too. Latino family as well. And they went to church every Sunday and I was just always with her. So I would go.
Yeah.
But I would fall asleep every Sunday. I found it creepy. I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty creepy to me, like the priest and the whole like, oh, like I was freaked out by that shit. Like I was just like, I don't know, but I guess I'm supposed to be here, whatever. And then at times, then at one point, my parents were like, I got baptized when I was baby, when I was like about probably like 2 years old. I got baptized. I got baptized with my cousin. Rest in peace. We got baptized together. Then I was supposed to do my communion, as they call it. I think that's what it is, right?
Yes, I did everything together at the same time. That's why I was baptized late.
Oh, yeah, because you have to be baptized first, right, in order to do your communion or whatever. I get confused. But so then my parents enrolled me to do my is it communion or confirmation? Yo, I don't even know which one.
Communion is for you to, I think, eat the bread, and then confirmation is for you to confess, I believe.
It was like a class, but I don't know which one it was, but I know that I had to go every Saturday morning to a class at the Catholic school that was nearby our house. And then I was scheduled to do my confirmation. I don't know what it's called, but I know that during that time they had like the Bible book and they would teach you the Bible stories, and I would listen to them. They would resonate with me, but not on a level where I really understood. I still always had questions. And like you said, like you go to ask something and there's a problem.
Yes. And that was a big issue for me.
Yes, that was a big issue for me too. And then I think the only time I would ever afterwards go to church outside of going with my girl and her family was if somebody passed away. We were at a church because of that. But when I was and then my dad would say that all the priests molest children. My dad been woke, okay? So yeah, and then I didn't really get involved in it. I will say though that as a child, and I know this is the part that may like spook people out right here, but when I was a child, and I'm speaking as early as I want to say it started around 4 years old when my grandmother passed away. I was very, very close to her. And it was my mom's mom. And after that, I would hear people talking to me. Like I would just hear people. And I was like, is this me talking to myself? Like who's talking to me? But I would hear people say, like, give me the like messages. They would give me numbers. They would give me messages. I would be sleeping and I would feel somebody like touch my feet or pull at my covers and I would get scared. Then there were times that people who had transitioned in my family, I would be doing something and I would turn and I would see them. Like I would see them just standing there. Like I remember I would get so scared and I would run out of whatever room I was in. There was one time I was in my room and I'm just chilling and I turn and I see my grandmother in her bata just standing there looking at me, like smiling. And I got so scared and I ran to the living room, like when my family was watching TV, but I wouldn't really say anything to anybody.
How old were you when that would happen to you?
It started at 4, but when I started to see them, I was like about probably 7, 8.
It's a very interesting age because I was gonna guess 7 also. It's an age where like you're basically settling in as a spirit, I guess you can say. And it's a very interesting thing, but a lot of children experience things like that. So it's very important to listen to your children when they tell you they feel certain things or that they're having nightmares. Because to me, like I remember going through stuff like that too. Like I remember one time I was sitting in the car with my dad and I rarely saw my dad. But it was one of those times where like I was so happy, I was so excited. So I was like so like jittery and like moving around a lot. I was excited to be with him and spending time with him. And I heard a knock on the glass, like when he was leaving the car. And I thought it was him. I turned around, there was nobody there, right? The little things like that. I will feel someone like pull my arm. I will turn around and be like, oh my God, like there's nobody there. And you start to think like, am I weird? Am I crazy? What's going on?
And then it's like, they make you think, I feel like with the Catholic religion, they made me feel like that was like evil spirits or whatever, right? But then here's the gag, here's the crazy part. So also at 4 years old, my mother did something extremely traumatizing, which till this day, I'm just like, what was wrong with you? She had me watch the movie The Exorcist.
Oh.
At 4, bro. Like, that is not a movie for a 4-year-old. So at around I was completely traumatized with that movie, like completely traumatized. I would have nightmares every night. I actually could not sleep on my back till I was about 20 years old. I kid you not. I could not sleep on my back till I was 20 years old because I used to think that I was going to float up like her. Then as I started seeing these spirits and feeling and hearing these things, I started to really think that like this quote unquote devil was after me and my family. At times that I would like share just something little, it would be kind of like, oh, esa necesita una limpieza, like she needs a cleaning, whatever.
Oh,
So
wow.
I kind of became scared of myself, I'll be honest. Then I had the chicken pox, and my brother would say I look like her, the girl.
Oh my
I couldn't look
God.
at myself.
To the
I was
trauma.
like 6. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I was terrified of myself. So now I had this thing where I used to think that the devil was going to come possess me. So now I'm seeing these spirits. Now I'm feeling these things. And I'm really thinking like somebody's coming to get me. And then what started getting crazier, and these are the things that I wouldn't tell anybody, is that before somebody would transition, I would get like a premonition, or I would have a dream where somebody would tell me they're going to take somebody. And then next, somebody would pass away. And I used to be like, wait, like, am I bugging? Like, but I felt like I knew that was going to happen. And what was I going to say? Oh, this is another thing. When we used to be at the Catholic Church and I was doing the communion, confirmation, whatever it's called, please forgive me, I don't remember. When they would have us do confessions and go into that confession booth, bitch, that shit was scary. And that
Yeah,
shit
it's very
was
weird.
fucking creepy. And then I was really confused at the do 4 Hail Marys and 3 Our Fathers and you're forgiven. And I'm like, what? Okay. Like I followed along, but I never felt complete. I never felt complete. I always felt like, I don't know what this is. This is off.
Yeah, that was one of my first kind of like questions also. Like, wait, I was so scared to confess. I was over here like in my bedroom, in the corner of my bed, like writing down all the things that I think were wrong. And then I was so conflicted because I would be like, wait, I did this, but if I didn't do that, then something of like this was going to happen to me. So I was so confused. Like, I'm like, wait, I don't even know what is the right stuff and what is the wrong stuff. Like, what do I just tell my life story? Like, what do I do? I was so confused. And then when I went and I declared like all the things that I thought were wrong, like I know for sure not respecting my mom all the time was one of the first things. So I got that out of my system. But then like after I got everything out that I was like, oh my God, like I wonder what they're gonna say. And they told me like, yeah, do 3 Hail Marys and 4 Our Fathers. And I was like, wait, is this what they tell everybody to do? I don't understand. Like what determines how many I do and how and what am I saying?
Yes.
What am I even saying?
I feel like there was always like this, I don't know, like this feeling like you're always gonna get punished for something. Like you're always in sin.
Mm-hmm.
Like I never understood that shit. But what was crazy was after that, I went through a lot as a teen. I was a very angry teen, like you, Danesha. It was a very, very angry teen. I had mommy issues, our disconnect, took a toll on me mentally. I didn't realize it, but it did take a toll on me. And at that point, I remember I was a teenager and I started listening to Marilyn Manson music. So, I don't know if you know Marilyn Manson.
Of course, yes.
Okay, well, of course, everybody at that point thought I was fucking worshiping the devil. Then I got into like this goth phase and I fucking dyed my hair black and I was dressing all in black. It was all a phase. You watch TV, you watch all this shit and it's like I was trying to find my identity. With all these different things that I watched or experienced. And when I was 22 is when shit kind of hit the fan for me when it came to this was the other thing, like when I was like with my ex-boyfriend, if he was cheating on me or doing stuff, dude, I would literally close my eyes and I can see exactly what he was doing. And then I would get freaked out. Like there was one time, I'll give you an example. I close my eyes, I see a movie theater and I see a movie theater ticket. And I'm like, what the fuck? He goes in the shower. I'm here just like, putting the clothes in the laundry and I'm just going through the pockets to take out the stuff. And what do I see? A movie ticket.
Oh my God.
He was at the movies with a girl. There was another time I saw a vision of a car like just fogged up. Next thing you know, I find out he was sleeping with somebody in my car. Like it was things like that that would happen. And he would be thinking like I'm crazy because I would ask these questions and his face would turn like ghost white. And then it was like, how the hell does she know? You know what I mean? There was not a cell phone back day for you to search a guy's phone. It wasn't like that. Like we had beepers, bro. Like I'm old, okay? So there wasn't like, you know, I couldn't follow him. I couldn't like go through social media and so like it wasn't like that, okay? So the shit was real. Like I would have visions. I would have premonitions on things. And then what ended up happening is I had a dream and I was running in this like darkness, I just like a pitch black room. And this person kept grabbing me like from my shirt from the back and kept trying to pull me back and pull me back. And I'm like, get off of me, get off of me. I'm running. And they're saying, I'm going to take somebody from you. I'm going to take somebody from you. And I just kept running and running and running and running, trying to get away. So at that point, I'm older, of course. So I wake up and the first thing I say is somebody's going to die. That's what I said when I woke up. So I go to my dad. I said, I think somebody's going to die. And he's like, no, diga eso, whatever, whatever. I said, no, Tony, I feel it. Like something's going to happen. So at that point, my mom was going through a lot with her health. So the first person I assumed that something would happen was her. Like, I was like, oh my God, what if something happens to her? So next thing you know, I'm at work. It's like 2-3 days after. I'm at work. It's pouring raining outside. And I'm on my way. Actually, I was on my way to the dance studio to teach a class
that I was in.
That you were in. How crazy is that? So I leave my first job and I'm running to go to the bus to go uptown to go teach a dance class that Danesha was in. And when I'm running, I slip in the middle of the street, like literally I fly up and boom, hit my ass on the floor. Now, as I'm trying to get up because it's raining, I can't get up as fast. There's a car coming that swerves all the way to not hit me, almost causing like a full-blown accident just to not hit me. So I get up all shaken up, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, oh my God. And I said, oh my God, I almost died. Oh my God, I almost died. So I'm all shaken up, whatever. So I'm trying to calm down. I'm like, whatever, I'm fine. So remember what I said, the car swerves to not hit me. So it misses me and boom, goes. This is on I think it was a Tuesday or something. I can't remember. I used to teach on Tuesday and Thursdays, I think. Anyways, not important. So about 2 days later, no, it was that day actually. No, it was that night. Oh my God, it was that night. So what happens is I go home, I tell my dad a story. I'm like, oh my God, I almost died. I almost got hit by a car, yada, yada, yada. Next thing you know, I'm feeling real funny now. Like my whole stomach just feels so sick to my stomach. Like, and I'm like, oh my God, like I feel like something's gonna happen and I don't want to think like that. Let me chill out. Let me chill out. So my homegirl, I call her. I'm like, hey, you want to go out? She's like, yeah, like let's go out. You know what I mean? I was like, I gotta get my mind off. She like, I'm tripping here. So she invites me to this club, whatever. So I meet her at the club. And my dad, I told him I was going out. I was living with my dad at the time. And I told him I'm going out to the club. He's like, all right, cool. And next thing you know, I come home. My dad doesn't know that I got home. I guess he didn't hear me come in. So I got home early because while I was at the club, I was still bugging out. I was like, yo, I don't feel right. Like, I don't feel right, yo. So at this point I had a cell phone. Now cell phones were like getting popular. And I go home. I fall asleep. I get home like around 12. I fall asleep. At 2 something a.m., my phone is blowing up, ringing. I finally see, and it's my dad. And I'm like, why is my dad calling me? He's in the next room right next to me. So I get up and I pick up the phone as I'm walking to his room and I see he's not in his room. He's like, I'm like, I'm in the bed, I'm sleeping. He's like, I didn't know you got home. So I'm like, what happened? What's up? You know what I mean? Like, where you at? So now my brother and my cousin have the same name, Anthony. So, but I used to call my cousin by his last name, De Leon. So my dad goes, Anthony se mató en un accidente. I'm thinking he's saying my brother. My heart fucking falls to the floor. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, Anthony De Leon. He's like, se mató en una bicicleta. Yo, I've never felt my whole like life get sucked out of my body. Now, this is my cousin that I grew up with. That's the one I got baptized with. I was born in January. He was born in June. My closest. That was basically my other brother. Okay. And he says, he died. Yo, my dog, I remember, was there. My dog, I swear these dogs know so much. And my dog started coming to me, like, licking me and comforting me. And I was just stuck. Like, it was just like, those surreal moments, like you don't feel anything is real. So my dad's like, I'm coming to get you right now. Come outside. So I get outside. After that, it's really a blur, but then it hits me about the dream. And I said, I knew, and I couldn't do nothing. I knew it. So now we end up driving, because he was in Pennsylvania at the time living. We end up driving all the way to Pennsylvania. And when we get there, we go to the scene of the accident. And you can see the entire skid mark of the street where he tried to brake. And a car was trying not to hit him and sped up, but he hit the back of the car and flew off the motorcycle and died instantly. At that point is when I went into a really, really dark place. Mentally, I went into a very dark place. I started drinking heavy. It just took a big toll on me. And I remember that I started to feel things again that I would feel, like, I don't know what you want to call it, from spirits or whatever. And I remember saying, leave me alone. Stop telling me stuff if I can't help nobody. Like, I don't want to know. I don't care about this gift. I don't want to know about it. Leave me alone. And from that point, I would never feel anything after that. I wouldn't feel nothing at all. And then I ended up going through an experience when my husband got into some stuff, and he ended up getting locked up and going to prison, which a lot of people don't know this. And my husband did 1.5 years in prison. And during that time, only like my closest friends, Kelly, knew, and my dad and my brother knew, but majority of people, like only my closest people knew. Nobody else knew. Everybody thought he was still around. And that's when his cousin invited me to a Baptist church. And I went to the Baptist church, and I was like, well, this is very different than the Catholic churches, It was real lively. They were singing, and it was full of a lot of life. And I felt really good. So I began to that's when I began, like, that was the first time I ever even opened up the Bible, I'll be honest. Like, me opened up the Bible and start reading it. And that's when I got into Christianity. And I would read the Bible all the time. I was in church every Sunday. Every Sunday, me and his cousin were in church. Again, I was searching for something for saving, for healing. I don't know what to call it, but I was searching for something. And I remember the first time I went, they have they say their scripture, they say whatever, and how it relates to life and stuff. And I felt it, like it was relating to me. And they said, if this calls you, like, come to the front, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I remember going to the front, and I was crying, and they were praying on me, and I'm not going to lie, it felt good. It did feel good. I'm not going to lie. And then my husband got very, a lot of people, when they go into prison, of course, they find God. So he, he was also, he was also reading the Bible. So now we were like going back and forth with scriptures. Like, we got heavy into it. I'm not going to lie. We got super heavy into it. When he came out of prison, we got super heavy into it. And the issue, though, that I was having, though, was that I felt like, how an addict, where you just, or like or like, you use it, you start to get a higher tolerance. Like if you keep drinking, then all of a sudden you can handle more liquor, but you need more, you know what I mean? To get to where you want to get to feel drunk, to feel high, to whatever the case is, you just need more. So I kept feeling like during the week, I would go through my stuff, and then Sunday I would go to church and it would help me, and I would feel like the power, like, yeah, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to be fine. And then it's as if I would relapse again during the week. Like I couldn't find a stability in my inside myself. It was just like this tug of war. So I kept going back to church for the fix. I kept going back to church for the fix. And it's like, okay, you're fixing me a little, but I still feel empty. That's what started happening. Then I moved to California, right? And I'm searching for a church. I'm searching again for something. And when I'm doing that, I end up finding this church, and I was completely turned off by it. It was so superficial. It was such a fucking Hollywood church, dude. People would go there dressed up. That pastor, I'm not going to say his name, but phony baloney in my head. I didn't believe him. He didn't seem genuine. I remember there was a time my husband asked to speak to him, and he kind of brushed my husband off a certain way. Like, I just wasn't feeling the vibe there. And I was like, all right, this ain't for me, because this is Hollywood. This is way too Hollywood. Like if a celebrity was there, they would be like, Diddy is here. Like, I don't give a fuck if Diddy's there. I'm there for God. Like, I'm there to find, you know what I mean?
Basically,
what the fuck Diddy gonna do for me? Like, I don't care. So it would be things like that really turned me off. So me and my husband were like, this ain't for us. So then my girl invites me to her church, and it's like the church I was in New York. So I end up going, and again, it feels good. It feels very, very good. And this time I go up to the front, and I start to feel something even stronger within my spirit that I can't explain. And I end up start hearing voices. I end up speaking in tongues. It gets pretty crazy. And then at that point, they take me and they baptize me. And it was like rebirth. I don't know what to call it, but it felt good. I'm not going to lie. Again, it felt good. But then again, there was that tug of war of like, that was good for a moment, but I'm still empty. And then as we started getting heavy into the Bible more, we also were going through our awakening of doing other research. So we will go back to the church or to people we knew in different, that were that were Christians, and we would start asking questions, and they could not answer us. They would just refer back to the Bible. And I'm like, okay, but to take the Bible out real quick, because there's a bunch of books outside of the Bible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so what about this? And what about this? And nobody could really answer us. And it was at that point that I was like, you know what? I started getting heavy into meditation. And as I started getting heavy into meditation, I started drifting away from the church. However, I started to feel like I was becoming whole. I started to feel like this fix was not needed no more. Like I was just feeling different within myself. And then there was this one time where I was in my in my roof, and I was meditating. And at one point, I feel this electricity run from my toes all the way up to my body. And then I feel my whole body like lock, like just lock. And when it locks, I literally feel my soul come out of my body, and I'm just like floating in the air. Now I'm there up in that roof about 20 minutes. Okay. I start to feel this rush that goes like this electricity, just like running through my whole body, like a zzz. And then all of a sudden I hear the ding that my meditation music was over. So when I hear that ding, I just wake up. And when I wake up, I felt like I was in that experience. It was so peaceful, but I felt like I was there for like an hour, dude. I was there for 20 minutes. All I know is when I came out of that, I felt this peace that I've never felt in my life, that it brought me to tears, that I ran downstairs and I'm like, oh my God, Greg, oh my God, oh my God. And he's like, what? I was like, I don't know what happened just now. I was like, but my soul left my body, babe. Like it left my body. And something happened to me, like something happened to me, and I can't explain it. I can't explain it. That was the transformation after that. When I dug more into religion, I started studying other religions. I started looking into the Quran. I started looking into other Bible books that were burned. I started researching all these other stories that were similar to the Jesus story, like Horus and all these other goddesses and gods. And I started realizing we're all searching for some type of saving, right?
For sure.
And we're all pretty much doing the same thing, but we're doing it. It's like we're all dancing to a different song, but we're dancing the same way. Like we're just looking to free ourselves.
Yeah.
And because of that, I got really turned off by religion because I felt like this was deeper than just me having a Jesus save me. And this is not knocking anybody who believes in, in Jesus. It's not to say that Jesus is real, not real. I'm not saying any of that. But what I will say is I didn't find my savior in Jesus. I found my savior in myself. And I know that's a hard thing for a lot of people that are very into religion to hear because, but the truth is that at the end of the day, in my experience, I have never felt more free than when I started going into meditation and that part. And when I'm talking about meditation, I'm talking about deep meditation, okay? That there's something that happens to my body that I can't explain, but it's the most freeing thing ever. And it has literally healed me so much. I feel that God has given us the power to heal ourselves. God has given us the knowing of everything we need to know. All we have to do is remember.
Yes. I do want to say also that I grew up. All right. So my mom already knew who my godmother was going to be. Mm-hmm. It was her aunt that she loves so deeply. I love her the same way. It was like perfect match. I couldn't even picture another godmother. But her husband was supposed to be my godfather. So in my mind, that's my godfather, right? The crazy thing is we made a trip to the Dominican Republic. And on that trip, on the first day or the second that he was there, he passed away. And that summer was after that summer vacation, we were going to come home and I was going to get baptized. So he didn't get to baptize me. Through like all these like feelings of grief and all this stuff that I'm feeling, my mom kind of offers his oldest son to be my godfather. But it felt kind of weird because he was, and this is what's crazy, he was very much into spirituality, not religion. Mm-hmm. He used to meditate. He had a lot of like different figurines of like Krishna and Buddha around his room or his space. He was always meditating and he would go to like conferences. I don't know what the religion was, if it was even a religion, if it wasn't just like a spirituality group that he met with. I don't know. But that kind of opened up a little bit in my mind because I would go into his room and he would be very open about all the stuff that he was learning. So it was so interesting. I've always been the type of person to ask a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. He never had any issues answering my questions, So obviously also in school, you learn about like myths and metaphors and stories and folklores and stuff like that. So once I go into this like Sunday study group to study the Bible because I'm going to get baptized, do my confirmation and my communion. So I'm doing everything together. they're teaching us these Bible stories, which I was super into. I'm like, oh my God, I love the message in these stories. So in my head, automatically, I'm like, okay, these are stories.
Right.
So then that's my perception. So I'm super into the classwork. I'm super into all these quote unquote stories, right? But then when I start having these conversations with adults, they kind of shut my idea down that it's not just a story, that it's all these things that really happened in real life. So I'm like, wait, that doesn't make any sense.
The
Because
Bible says that it's all allegory.
exactly. I mean, and at that point, I wasn't reading the Bible on my own yet. I was just
Yeah,
reading
yeah.
what they would tell me. And so I started catching on like, wait, they're making me read these stories, but I can read these stories. Right. So then right there, like a light bulb lit up in my head. And I'm like, wait, so they are giving me like a short version of the story. They're not even reading the whole story for me. So how am I getting the proper perception? This was in my, again, my teenage years, right?
Hmm.
So after I do my whole baptism and everything, I would go to church and I would be so freaked out by like drinking the wine and eating the body of Christ. Like that just didn't make any sense to me. That just felt like so weird. And I started making up these stories in my head to kind of make it make sense, but it still didn't make sense. Um, so again, those things were all very, very, very confusing to me. But one day I go into my what would be godfather's room now, which I didn't really consider him my godfather. To me, he just played the part. Um, and he wasn't my actual godfather. But anyway, something called me into his room. I remember he was away at a conference or something, and I started looking like at his stuff, and I just sat down and started meditating, right? I
Mm.
went into a deep, deep meditation. I was 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I remember like, wow, I've never actually like spoken about it before, but you brought back the memory. And I mentioned this to one of my cousins before, but it was a really long time ago. And I went into this deep meditation, just basically showing me that I always had some type of protection and that I always had guidance, right? But I didn't know that's what it was. I just felt like comfort. It just felt like I was home. And it was like the weirdest thing
Mm.
because I was just in the moment. I was so present that I have no idea how much time it was. I have absolutely no idea what I really saw, but I just remember like the vibrations of what I was feeling.
Yes.
Um, and in that moment, it was like, are you ready to meet your maker? Like basically my meditation was going all the way. Like, oh, you really connected right now and I'm ready to show it to you all, right?
Yes.
And as I sat there to meditate, fear overcame my whole entire body. It was like so scared. Like I was ready, but my mind was like, no, you're not ready. So
Feeling
my soul was ready to jump in. And my physical body was like, nah, sis, hold on. You have absolutely no idea. And I think it was a confusion too, because I felt safe and I felt comforted and I felt warm and like protected. But all the thoughts, this was the separation of like your soul and your brain come in.
Mhm.
All the things that I had like learned in church started like messing with my meditation. So I went into like this crazy fear and I woke up from that and was like, oh no, absolutely not, right?
Wow.
I never meditated again until I literally went through a dark phase in my life, which was like 22 to 25 years old,
Mhm.
where I had moved out because I was having issues with my mom. I had moved out and I didn't realize that I had cut all connections to like everything. I just cut everything. It was like a moment where I felt like if I don't understand anything, then I don't want to be part of anything. And I think that's like the Scorpio energy in me, where it's just like all or nothing.
Mhm.
And so I went through this super dark phase of just trying to escape, just escape. So I was like very nocturnal. I was out in the night a lot.
Mm.
And then in the daytime, you couldn't even hear about me. I would just be locked in my room, smoking. And then in the night, it was drinking. So my body was definitely going through some type of like awakening and I wasn't realizing it.
Right.
So then after like 25, where this is like, I decided to try to give meditation a try again. And I had the most wonderful meditation. And then my life started changing again, where like then that's when I met my husband now, which we were just friends at that time. And then I had Enzo. And after that is like absolutely everything started like aligning for me.
Oh,
But
birth does something to you. Birth is a spiritual process, man. Like,
yes,
I
it
feel like
definitely,
I felt God when I gave birth. Like I felt the God in me when I gave birth.
it's proof. It's the proof that you need.
Yes.
It's like that moment that you're like, "Oh, of course there's a God. Of course. Look what I just did."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? And so I do, oh, what I did also, when I was, after I gone to church and like right at the cusp of like 20, 22 years old around there, I bought a book literally that said the misconceptions and like basically the things of the Bible that don't make sense, right? So I started reading this book and then I quickly started learning about the history of religion, why our families are Catholic and Christians, who altered the book, like that. Those are the types of things that I started kind of like, okay, there's answers out there. And then I was talking with Jen all the time and I had so many different questions, but my mind was really open at the time where I'm like, okay, I need to explore different options because this one-sided thing, not even the people that are like, will literally put their life on the line for that, they can't even explain to me what's going on. So it's weird, you know?
And what a lot of people don't know is that Islam is one of the oldest religions. Like this whole country was an Islamic country
Mm-hmm.
until they brought in, Catholic and Christianity and all these things like that. And it's pretty crazy because a lot of these other, practices, a lot of them focus a lot on the science of the body.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very interesting to me because as you start to study the body and you start to study the universe and you start to study everything, you realize that the Bible is more of a guide to your literally your spiritual body within inside. You have your pineal gland, you have all these other points in your body that do something mentally to you or spiritually. I don't know how to explain it if I'm explaining it right, but when you start to look at this Bible, you look at, okay, first of all, let me just say this before I forget. Jesus. The fact that there was always an association with a white Caucasian person, like a Caucasian person when it came to Jesus, was a problem to me because I'm like, but you say you got wool hair,
Mm-hmm.
copper skin. That don't look like the brother you got up in that picture. And if it's like when you would tell people this, they would always be like, oh, well, color don't matter. No, it does.
It does.
We have been taught that white is right. And every time, like you used to see shows when you were younger, what did you see? You see a white person saving the black family, right? Different Strokes, TV show. White man, save the black kids. Facts of life. White women, save the black girl. Like everything you saw when it came to television, all these indoctrinations was the white people were like the superior race. And if you wanted to be successful, you had to talk white or act white or, get close to white people. And now you have this Jesus image that everybody's praising to, and it's a white man with blue eyes. And to me, that was always a problem. I think that if this person Jesus exists, I do feel he is black. That's what I feel. Yes. And then I also find funny that the Bible goes back 200 years, but we've been 200, whatever it is, not whatever.
2000,
yeah. We were here way before that.
Mm-hmm.
Way before that, Black people were here. Now, I personally feel that the Bible starts when the white people started coming into play. And that's a whole nother story when
It's a whole other rabbit hole.
you don't go get into it like that. But if you do your homework, this is when the white race and you know starts to come into play more. And you know, you look at this Adam and Eve, they say, right, were the first quote unquote people. But then in the Bible, at one point, it says that they went to the city of Nod, I guess, to meet other people. So that means they were other people.
Yeah, exactly.
So, there's that. There's also the part, you know, where they say that he died and in 3 days he resurrected and came back to life. They say that he was a healer and all these things. I personally feel like Jesus was probably a very high level of consciousness person. And that's why he was able to activate all his powers. And just like now, if you do healing or you do any of these things, what are you deemed? You're deemed as if you're doing like a demonic act. And I just feel like they demonized our entire culture when it comes to witchcraft and black magic and all these things that are not necessarily a bad thing, but they demonized it. So we don't tap into it. We become scared of it. But if you really think about it, for me personally, when I read the Bible, it sounds like some of the stuff that Jesus was doing. And then you're going to tell me that he died and then came back to life. But if somebody would say that that happened right now, nobody would believe that.
Exactly.
Like,
It's also like weird because when one of the first things I learned when I go back is like and read and reread things is also and compare it to history. I realized that his name was not even Jesus.
no, because the letter J didn't come out till I don't even want it was Yeshua or something like that.
Yeshua. Yeah. So in reality, it's like, okay, so they could have, which they did, clearly create a character for you, which I think it's dangerous because it's like what you say. Like there's millions, I could probably say billions of people that worship this man, but they're not just worshiping the man, they're worshiping the image. And so that was one thing because for me what connected it was learning about like the theory of evolution in school. Like when I look at what they're trying to say, like to me it was like a slap in the face because I'm a student in high school. How could I see this, but nobody else saw it? Like, to me, it was utter disgrace. Like, so when I walk into church with my grandma, all the figures are white. They're all white. And it's not even like different shades. No, they're all white. And then when you go to school and you learn about evolution and they teaching you a whole bunch of monkeys, what comes from monkeys? Like they want to say that the dark skin is who's connected to monkeys, but then all these divine white people were just placed here by the hand of God. So it's like you really have to also break down that psychology. Like, what?
You ever see the comedy special with Cat Williams? I think it was one of his first ones where he was like, they say we came from monkeys, so what happened to the monkeys that are still here? Those are the retarded ones? Like they didn't evolve to become fucking humans.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how fooled can we get as a society to not realize that? Like, hold up. And then you do a little more research and you realize whose image was created by. And the reason why, like,
here's the crazy part. Here's the crazy part, yo. When you go and study more into the Vatican and the Pope, homie, they pray to a black images. They pray to black sculptures all over the place there. Black images. Okay? Mm-hmm. I will send you like, yo, so you start to think, hold up. So y'all pray to that. Y'all give us this white man with blue eyes. Y'all change his name.
And for the record, our discussion right now is not does he exist or was he here? That's not the discussion. It's just the image that was presented to us.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to really break down because it's false.
And here's another thing that a lot of people know. There's a germ in your body that goes from your spine Goes all the way up, travels up from your spine, the bottom, goes all the way up to the top of your pineal gland. And it's called Jesus.
Mm.
So they say when you hit your kundalini, as they call it, some people don't believe in that, but they say when you hit your kundalini is when you basically like the germ goes all the way up and rises to to your pineal gland, you feel this explosion. And I felt that before. My husband has felt that before. A few friends of mine have felt that before. And something happens to you after that experience that I can't even put into words. It just changes you, but in the most incredible way. I won't get into again the psychedelic stuff until later when we do the episode, but I will say that after my experience, if you heard the last episode, I talked about my experience with postpartum depression, and that I decided to get back into like the spiritual side of things, of meditation heavy, because I got really back into it before I had my children as I was going through my awakening. And then when I had my children, like I said, I experienced God on a whole nother level. I experienced every single power that God said, I have given you. You know everything already. The answers are already in you. Like I experienced all that physically. And then I kind of, not that I stopped meditating, but I wasn't doing it as religiously as I was before, because you get caught up with life and children and yada, yada, yada. And I did my best, but I wasn't doing it the way I wanted to. And then I ended up doing a fast for 30 days and I was meditating 3 times a day. And that was life changing. I think everybody, don't just jump into a fast if you've never done it.
Yeah.
I was just eating sun up, sundown, not Ramadan per se, but practicing a little bit of that. I took a little bit of everything. I kind of pretty much took a little bit of every religion I've learned and kind of found my own way. That's what works for me. But when I got heavy back into my spirituality was when I started doing the breath work. Mm-hmm. And when I started doing the breath work, I remember saying, I'm ready. I literally was like, I'm ready now. So I felt like I let them go, the people that were guiding me years ago. And then I said, I'm ready. And they came, and I have heard voices. I have spoken to ancestors. I have seen ancestors. I have gotten guidance in a way I can't even explain. And it's been a very liberating and freeing process for me. So I feel like you got to do what works for you. Some people, believing in Christianity, believing in this makes them a better person, and it works for their life and whatever their purpose they're shooting for. I will say that at the time it worked for me as I was evolving in my, my spiritual growth. But I don't feel it works for me now. I feel like I have found church within myself. Mm-hmm. I feel that, like I said, I have all the powers and I have all the knowings. And I was confirmed with that after my breathwork and psychedelics experience, that I do have all the powers. And I do feel like this little dark matter or dark energy that was sitting inside of me, I feel like I finally was able to release it. And I don't feel that church did that for me. I don't feel that Jesus did it for me 100%. I feel like, it did its job at the time where it released certain things, but not in its wholeness until I tapped into myself. And I started, having knowledge of self, and I started studying my body. And I started studying all these other religions, and I started taking pieces of everything that works for me. I think you got to find what works for you. I don't knock anybody and what they subscribe to, but I don't like when people try to say that this is the way, like you have to believe in Jesus and you have to be baptized in the name of Jesus. And I can't subscribe to that anymore, because there is a big world out there that does not subscribe to that. So you're going to tell me they're not going to be saved? You're going to tell me they're going to go to hell? I don't believe there is a place where you literally burn for the rest of your life. What kind of God do you believe in if you believe that?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just being honest. Like, I feel like heaven or hell is right here. Heaven or hell is inside of you.
Yeah. You know what I also feel though? Like, because it's written in parables, you can get a lesson out of each story, whether
Yes.
like take out of your head that these are
Beautiful
things
book.
that happened, not in a bad way, like, okay, the Bible doesn't exist. No, but just try to make sense of a lesson in each story. And I bet you that you'll be like, oh my God, I'm going about life all wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's also because we don't understand ourselves. Like, okay, I took once an EKG class, right? I got certified. I can do EKG tests on people, right? As I learned how like the heartbeat works, right? Then someone was talking about a car and he was talking about how the battery works. And I was like, oh my God, the battery works just like the heart. And I was, comparing those two things. And then that sparked within me, like, hold on. When I read the story of creation, I don't think it's an accident that the person's name is Adam and then that a cell is an atom. Like, if these are all things that are being passed down verbally and then someone decided to write them down, like, why are we not breaking it down that way? Because we don't have the knowledge of self, we can't connect these parables to our bodies and how our bodies work. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing. Because if you realize the story of Jesus also, when he turns like the water into wine, we do that every day. We crystallize the water in our body and turn it into blood.
Yes.
So if we really pay attention to how our body works and we use etymology to break down the Bible, we realize that by you worshiping yourself, I think will give you like wouldn't you want to be like Jesus? I think that's more of the message. Like, I think that the Catholic and the Christian church, what they did was took Jesus from inside of you and placed it outside of you. So now you're lost.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's my opinion. Yeah, like it's not so much, oh, this didn't happen or it did happen. No, but it's an energy of some type of alchemizing that happens in your body. And because you see it as this white man with long hair that's going to show up and save you, and you don't realize that by you getting sunlight and fasting like he did for a certain amount of time, like there's a reason why his whole life story is not even in the Bible.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't that also make you feel suspicious? Like, okay, so this is your God, basically. This is your God that you worship, but you cannot tell me anything about his life. But the books are out there, but it's labeled like what is it called? Like the books that are not allowed.
Yeah, that they took out. Yeah, the Septuagint.
Yeah.
We got a few of them. But then also, what also kind of always was weird to me? How they never really talk about women in the Bible, except like Mary. But so women don't.
I have a whole theory about that too. Because
Like,
to me, the Holy Spirit is women. Women are the Holy Spirit. So instead of saying in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, we should be saying en nombre del Padre, del Hijo y de la Mujer, the trilogy.
yeah, and this whole notion of we came from a man's rib. I'm sorry, I can't. I can't. So we went from a rib to a womb. Come on, man. Like, I'm not trying to knock that, but let's use a little bit of common sense at times. Like, I think that the Bible is a beautiful, beautiful book.
Yeah.
And it says it in there. It's a book of allegory. I just feel that sometimes people take it way too literal.
Mm-hmm.
And then they become just like
enslaved
with it. Yeah, they become enslaved with it. And then they start like, they're the first people to judge. They're the first people to you know what I mean? Just criticize and have so much to say about people. And I just feel like I was one of those people too. I ain't gonna lie, but when I found knowledge of self, I will say one thing. I stopped taking things personal from other people more. You start to really take accountability of self is what starts to happen. And you start to realize that you are in control of this entire experience because you come from the source. You come from the biggest energy that exists in this world. So you were given these powers. And as I started to get more into like Abraham Hicks and her teachings, which some people, are not comfortable with. But I felt that it went back to what my dad always said: you are the God, you are the devil. It depends what energy you put out there, right? And it's always that, concept of, karmic debt that we put out there, right? And it could be good or bad, right? But
Yeah.
I do feel that this world and this universe is based on law of attraction, and that God, because he's given us all the powers and all the knowings that we need to know, again, we just have forgotten, we have the ability to either create a hell within ourselves, or we have the ability to create heaven within ourselves. There was a point that I did create hell for myself. And you know what happened during that time when I created hell? Bad things continuously kept happening to me because I was creating a momentum of constant negative energy. And when I started to basically switch that and then start thinking, in a more positive, more more of gratitude. I think gratitude is one of the most important things in life to have, to not wait for something to make you happy, not wait for the right job, not wait for the right experience, not wait for anything, but just to be happy. And I posted something today about that. Like, you just got to be happy right now in the present with what you have. And I feel like once you keep doing that, you create a momentum of then the universe now giving you stuff. It's kind of those experiences the same way when you're like, why everything keeps going bad for me? But then all of a sudden you'd be like, yo, when it goes good like at the same time. Like everything starts coming at the same time. And that's because you basically became receptive to that. You opened up that door. You stopped, because we always say, like, I want this, I want that. And then what happens? Fear steps in, doubt steps in, insecurity step in. So now we block what we ask God for. We're like, God, I want this. And then he's like, well, I was going to give it to you, but look at what you're putting out. You're putting out fear. You're putting out negative. I don't subscribe to that. I don't feel that God subscribes to, like, I don't feel we have to suffer in order to be saved. And I feel like that's this concept of Christianity. Like, you got to be at the rock bottom, or you got to, no, I think that I don't feel we have to struggle to the degree that we struggle, or like put our kids through this struggle to say, oh, you got to learn because you got to go through pain like I did. No, you don't.
Yeah.
And like, what have you taught? I'm curious. What have you taught your kids when it comes to like God? I get that question all the time. Like, well, what are you teaching them to believe in?
Well, right now I'm letting them understand what God is for them. Um, I try to practice breathing with them when I can. They definitely know about the sunlight and drinking water. And then another thing is that I've actually spoken to them about choices. And I took away the negative and positive connotation that comes with decision making, right? Because another thing is that we have a very like, oh, this is good and this is bad. But in reality, I feel like this is all just perceptions, and some might consider it good while others might consider it bad, and vice versa.
Yep.
So one thing that sparked up like those types of conversations about good and bad with my children were they were asking about like a hookah. We went to a party and they saw some people smoking hookah. So he was like, what is that? Right away, I was about to be like, wow, we don't do that in this house. That's bad. But something took over me and kind of gave me the understanding, wait, hypocrite, you used to smoke hookah. Are you bad? And that type of thing, right? So I tell them like, okay, what that is, I explain what it is first. I'm like, okay, so that's like a device that you can put charcoal and some tobacco in there and you smoke that and it makes you feel certain things. So then my son was like a little curious and he's like, okay. And he was like, and I said, but I don't do that because I became aware that it's not so good for my lungs. So I don't do it. Right. Just letting him know my perception to kind of guide his perception also, because I'm his parent and I can do that. But so he was like, oh, so that's bad. And I was like, no, I mean, because another thing, I don't want them to connect. This is what religious people do too. Like they'll connect the bad behavior to a person that they thought was good. But because they saw that bad behavior, they no longer believe anything the person says,
Right.
or, or because bad people do good things, now all of a sudden your kids can trust them and stuff like that. So then I made it very clear, like, okay, no, you decide what you do, because that's another thing about free will. You can decide to do what you want. Now, the reason I don't do it is because I found out it's not good for my body or whatever. Because another thing is that guilt comes in. What if when they're in a later age and they want to do that, they want to try? Experimentation, life, and free will are all at a different person's perspective.
Yeah.
So I don't want him to think he's a bad person because he wants to try that. Him on his own, he'll find out, is this good for me or is it bad for me? So with like God, I don't talk about he, she in that type of sense. I talk more of like an energy, a vibration, a frequency that's around us, that once we align, we can kind of shed away the things that are holding us back.
Yes.
That's basically how I explain it to them. Because also another thing, and I'm just going to throw it in there so I don't forget. I hear a lot of people that are super religious say like, oh, if you don't do the right thing, God is going to punish you.
Oh,
So that
shit, yo.
Yes, it brings confusion because it's like, okay, so is the devil punishing you or is God punishing you? And if it's like God punishing you, then how do you know the difference between it being the devil and it being God punishing you because you didn't do the right thing, but you have free will though?
Yeah, I never understood that. And I never liked that. That's what I never liked. Like, I feel like, oh, so you can tell me this God is going to condemn me now? Like, what kind of God do you believe in? Like, I thought.
You're scaring me into believing in what you believe.
Yeah. So I never brought up like religion like that with my children. I never brought up God per se. I have taught him mainly Tristan because he's the oldest one that asks questions and stuff. We just teach him how to breathe, how important breath is. We teach him to meditate regularly. And when he meditates, girl, he goes in.
Oh
Like,
my God.
he'll zone out. You'd be like, Tristan, he's gone. Like, eyes closed, just gone, just completely zoned out. And what we'll have him do is we tell him to count like backwards or something, and then you kind of just you drift off if you really get in, I really just want to teach them about knowledge of self, about their bodies. I want to teach them that there is like, he's asked me at times, who created all this? He asked me one time. Mm-hmm. And I said, this was all created by the source, the highest form of energy that there is in this world. God is a very tricky term, I feel like. I don't know. And I'm still learning about like etymology and all these words. So I feel like I don't want to use these terms because they get switched up so much.
Exactly.
I don't know. Like, it's just like so many things. So I pretty much like just told him that. He's asked me, what is your soul? I told him that is the essence of who you are and it guides you. So our emotions in our bodies, when we feel a certain way, like angry, sad, and all these things, like those are signals that your soul is like, hey, I need some assistance in getting back in alignment.
Yes, I explained that to Enzo as well.
Yeah, so because we're supposed to feel a state, I teach my children about gratitude, how gratitude is very important, how you should be grateful for everything you have. And I love that my son, one of his classes that he's in, they do that where they meditate. They do breath work on there, not the breath work that we do but you know what I mean? Like, they do breathing exercises, and then they all do a state of gratitude. And I'll hear my son, I'm grateful for the food. I'm grateful for my mommy. I'm grateful for my daddy. I'm grateful for my games. I'm grateful for this house. I'm grateful for the trees. I'm grateful for the earth. Like, he'll say everything he's grateful for. And I love that. I always teach him that life is about enjoying life, to be enjoyed, to be positive all the times. I want to share this real quick. I had noticed, sometimes you get caught up in work and they get caught up in that television. He was getting caught up watching way too much YouTube. And I started to notice that he would say a lot of negative things.
Yeah.
So I was like, hold up. So now we banned it completely, like not even educational stuff. Like we just banned it completely. We actually are rearranging the house because we're taking all the televisions out of their rooms. We never wanted them, but it became something like when we had children, like his mom was like, well, I'm gonna buy them a TV. I'm gonna buy them a TV. And next thing you know, we have a fucking TV everywhere. Right? Like they
I feel
mean well, you know. And then you grow up thinking you're supposed to have a TV in every room. I don't subscribe to that anymore, neither do me and my husband. All the just neurological stuff also that I feel it affects. So we're now we took out all the TVs out of the room basically. And we're banning YouTube and we're just kind of switching things up on them right now. We talk to them when we do it, but you know, I tell them all the time, if you keep saying negative things are gonna happen. If you say positive things, and positive things are gonna happen. So I kind of teach them like the law of attraction and how what you put out, you get back. Because it's not gonna pick and choose the good off the bat. It's just gonna pick whatever you say out there.
yeah.
And
Gonna go with the flow.
yeah, I also didn't like in some of the games when he'd be like, "Oh, I died." I'd be like, "Don't say those words. Just say I lost this board." Like,
I've also tapped into kind of changing the perception of death in the home also. Because I feel like that's another thing that
I
is,
think we've been taught about death completely wrong.
yeah, we
I
don't
would
even
love to
talk
have an
about
episode on
it. We don't even talk about it in my house. Like in my family, that's like, oh my God, no diga eso. It's
yeah.
like, I get it, but that's the one thing that is super, super gonna happen. I don't know another word for it, but like it's
It
just gonna
is.
happen. So changing the meaning of it as well. Like now my children at least understand that wherever you came from, you were somewhere else before you came here. Is it horrible here? Okay, it's not the what you would consider absolute ascension or like alignment, but it's an ebb and flow of energy here, and you need movement. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So I teach them that about their energy. Like it doesn't just disappear. Like nothing just disappears. There's another journey for you. And changing the perception of death was like one of those things that have helped us a little bit, because I realized that it was something that I was really scared of also,
Yeah, like
especially
they
because I'm
haven't
a
asked
parent.
me about death per se like that, but you're right. Like we do need to change like how we bring it across to our children. It shouldn't be something that should be feared.
No, there's so many different cultures where they send their loved ones off. Like I feel like it's also because we've lost that connection. We're so scared of people when they die because of that, you know? And it's like, wow, even our loved ones, at least like in the Dominican Republic, you have to grieve them in your own house.
Right.
Like they have to sleep over for like 9 days, you know, not sleep
Yeah,
over,
they
but
do it in Puerto
stay
Rico.
in the house, you know, for all those days. And I remember when my godfather passed away being so scared, until I had a moment where I was like, wait, this is someone that I really loved deeply. Why am I so scared of their body? Like, why?
Why is this? They make us so scared of all that. Like, if if you haven't watched Midnight Gospel on Netflix,
I love that show.
I'm telling you right now, please go watch the entire season. And there's an episode in there about death, and it talks about like how they turned that shit into a business with embalming the body. Because apparently that's not what we were doing before.
Oh, we're not even supposed to use coffins, and we're supposed to care for our own people. And I speak for my culture. I can't speak for everybody else's, but at least when I learn about my culture and my people, we're supposed to bathe our own people and like take care of them, make them look presentable, bury them in like a blanket, a white blanket with flowers, because we're supposed to go back into the earth. Like we're forgetting that we're part of this cycle of nature.
Yeah.
And as humans, like we be like our physical bodies belong here on this earth.
Yeah, listen, watch that episode. Then the final episode brought me to tears, and it's just kind of an episode about life and death and everything we've kind of been talking about. And it's a beautiful, beautiful. The images of the show are incredible. Like there's so many like messages within it. Like it's super deep. Um, I know we got to wrap up soon, but yeah, I don't want my children to be born into something when I feel that that's the decision they need to make on their own. I see a lot of families that, they bring their children into their Christianity religion, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It doesn't work for me though, and I don't want to do that to my children. I don't want to tell my children you're a Christian, you're a Catholic, you're a this, you're that. You're you.
Mm-hmm.
You're you, and as you go through your experience in life, you will find your own spiritual journey. But I am gonna make sure that, you know, they're not going to feel like they're going to be condemned with everything they do in life. I want them to know that they hold the power. They hold every single power because they come from the source. Abraham Hicks always talks about the vortex and how, in the vortex is where you're in alignment. And the vortex is not a place where when you're not in alignment, they're going to come pick you up and be like, yo, come over here and bring you here. You got to bring yourself there.
Yeah.
And that comes with your thoughts, with how you speak out loud, and the momentum you create, whether it be a positive or negative energy. But when you start to create this positive energy, you go back into the vortex. And she says that when we transition, we go straight into the vortex right away. So she's like, don't wait to like croak to get into the vortex. Like you can have that beautiful experience of joy in life here. Like you can have that here. And I don't feel that I have to subscribe to a third party to do that. It doesn't work for me.
That's the key word for me also, is that when I break down all these religions and I break down all the stories and I break down all the etymology and how the stars are literally doing the same thing and my body is doing the same thing, and I read all these stories and it all connects, I realize that I am the connection to God. It's in me.
Yes.
I don't need anybody to interpret scripture for me. I don't need anybody to edit books for me. I don't even need anybody. I don't need to tell you what I did or I didn't do. The salvation is inside of me because I have to do for self.
Yep.
And once we realize that, we can stop kind of like depending, because this is one of these things where like we always want to depend on the quote unquote more knowledgeable or the professional. And that's why we are lost in the sauce, how we are as human beings, because we are always giving the knowledge to someone else. So if it's not confirmed by someone else or someone else says, yes, that's the way it is, we don't feel like it's actually true. But in reality, God speaks to you every day and all the actions that you do. There's sometimes, you're not supposed to do something and you do it and it goes bad. And then there's other times where you don't want to do something, but you push yourself. And so those are some small indicators to let you know that you are connected to the source. You have the guidance inside of you. You don't need any outside person that's flesh, just like you, and a sinner, how people like to say, just like you, because they're not perfect, to come and tell you how to like regulate your life or how to do things to be in connection to God.
Yes. Yes. And I'm just going to say one last thing before we close. Do not be afraid to express your thoughts on these things. I think we're so afraid because what friends are going to say, what we're going to think of you. Yo, who gives a, no, you shouldn't give a fuck. I'm going to say it straight up like that. I don't give a fuck what nobody thinks. I give a fuck what I think. I give a fuck about my own peace. And I have found that. I have found my peace. I have found, like I said, I found a healing that nobody else was able to give me but me, because I was able to use the powers that I was given by God. So this is a topic sometimes that's a little taboo and whatever. Look, be you and be unapologetically yourself in whatever you believe in and that works for you, whatever it is. If it's Jesus, if it's Catholic, whatever it is, then you go ahead and rock that. But don't force anybody to believe in what you believe and say that this is the only way. That I don't rock with. Let people live their lives. As long as they're not harming you, they're doing good for other people. They're living, a great, basically, life in how they are, going about their experience, and nobody should knock how they, go about that with what they believe in.
For sure.
Thank you for tuning in. I know we may have ruffled some feathers, and some people are probably gonna be like, these bitches crazy. And if that's you, it's all goody. We still love you. Peace and love to everybody who's been tuning in, to everybody who tuned in right now. Thank you guys for joining us. And we will catch you next Monday on Mommy Mondays. Peace out.